Are you interested in writing your own memoir? Do you feel that you have a story that you could tell and that you want to preserve? We're going to go over some guidance tips for writing your own memoir and imagining your own story. First things first, let's plan this out. What story do you have to tell here, and why should we, the readers, want to hear it? The biggest mistake that you can make is confusing your memoir for an autobiography. An autobiography tells the story and details of a life, typically from beginning to end. That is not what a memoir is. A memoir is the thematic storytelling of your life. Think about what lessons, principles, or emotions that you can offer to your reader. And remember, you and your story may be the subject, but it is not really about you. It is about what your story can offer to the reader. Pick the snapshot of your life that you want to feature. For example, think of starting at the ending. You got your dream job. Now, how did you get there? Then, pick your theme that you want to communicate throughout the story. This could be an emotional lesson or journey, such as, it's never too late to go for your dreams, or, if I can overcome these trials, so can you, reader. Lastly, select your anecdotes that you want to feature that feed into this theme. Feel free to select some that don't happen directly in this snapshot of time. You can easily include a snapshot from beforehand, such as your childhood, if it is relevant. Just make sure that you tie it in at the right point of the story. For example, a woman would tell a story of when she brings her adopted child home for the first time and gives them their first bedroom. In that moment, she could take the reader back to when she had her own first bedroom and the emotions that it made her feel as she tries to emphasize with her child now. Most importantly, as you plan, remember that to be successful, you will need to be honest in your story, incredibly open about your sadness, joy, and laughter in life, and also kind. While you should tell the truth, do not seek to be purposefully cruel in your writing toward real people in your life. Remember to present the challenge that will be faced as soon as possible. The best way to think of this is that you will start right in the middle of the action, not at the beginning. You also can flashback and explain things later as you go, but first you really have to hook that reader. Things do not originally get better in the story, but instead get worse as the struggle continues. Things progress until they eventually seem hopeless, and everything reaches a breaking point. Eventually, because of the lessons learned and the growth that you have made throughout the struggle, you overcome the challenge or otherwise reach some sort of inner peace. This does not have to be the structure of your memoir, but it is the typical formula to make things as engaging as possible. Now it is time to write. Just jump in. The best advice that I've heard from writers is, once the original outline is done, is to start writing and don't stop. Do not pause to edit or to overthink things. There will be plenty of time for this later. Get everything out on paper first. Make connections with each story. While not every story has to relate back to your main theme, you may just want to introduce your childhood best friend with a funny flashback. You must tie it into the narrative somehow. And put your personality into it. Make jokes and try to write how you would speak and use italics to show emphasis. And lastly, remember that the people in your life are now characters in your book. So make sure to round them out and make them feel personal to the reader. At the same time, make sure that you don't tell us why they did something. These are real people, and you weren't really in their head at the time, so you cannot know what they were thinking at the time. Write the whole first draft how you want, with original names and places. This can be changed later in editing. Every time you write a story, it is important to show, not just tell. For example, telling is saying, my father was a violent drunk, and I was scared of him. Instead, try out this. As soon as I heard my father's car pull into the driveway, I drove under my bed. I could tell by his footsteps whether he was sober or drunk and looking for a fight. You are not tied to the chronological fact-telling of an autobiography, so feel free to jump around and use plenty of descriptive words that will make your reader feel fully immersed. Now it is time to edit. Edit once, edit again, and again, and again, and again. Memoirs are true stories about your life, and you may cover some pretty ugly things in there. Make sure to disguise personal information about yourself. Use a pseudonym if you can. Avoid physical descriptions of people in your life if possible, and also change the names and perhaps even the dates or small details in order to mask the full story. Depending on what is covered in your story, it's advisable to talk to a lawyer before pursuing publication. Now, tips for editing. Read the text out loud in order to catch mistakes that you wouldn't catch otherwise. Check for consistency. Make sure that your dates and the descriptions line up, especially if you're going to be changing things around. And lastly, get some fresh eyes on your piece. Think about seeking an editor. And if you do, be open to critique. After all, they are doing their jobs, which means they maybe want to cut out a part of the story to make it more concise or change something that you hadn't necessarily expected. To publish your book, you can seek 3 different forms of publication. First, land a book contract by contacting a publisher with a query letter and a novel synopsis and sample. This works for very high appeal novels that are expected to be bestsellers. Or you can hire an agency like a publishing service. You will pay the cost, but they will take care of all of the details to get your work published. Lastly, you can self-publish, where you will do all the work and front all the charges. There are lots of different ways to self-publish. You can hire a hybrid service that will offer you guidance through the self-publishing procedure at a price. You can also post your ebook for distribution on Amazon or other ebook sites such as Apple iBooks. If your book sells for 99 cents on Amazon, your payment will be 35% or 33 cents per copy. Lastly, you can consider 2 different types of printing. There's print on demand, where books are printed as ordered but for a higher price, or offset printing, where you print a certain number of books up front. Costs of self-publishing include a cover design, professional editing, professional formatting, as well as promotion of your book. Be aware that some self-publishing services may claim to distribute your book to stores, but this is different than actually selling your books to stores. Most bookstores will rarely stock a book sent to them through a self-publishing service unless there is an explicit demand for it. No matter what, if you believe that you have a story to tell, then please come out and tell it. The library has lots of great resources for budding writers, and we would love to help you out. Stick around afterward if you have any questions. You can also contact us through reference chat, phone calls, dropping in during open hours, or using the question box on our website.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.